everywhere. And there's a teardrop running down my cheek, and it's breaking my heart in two.
Gentlemen, that was phenomenal.
Well, thank you.
That's just absolutely phenomenal.
Only thing was missing was Louis' scream.
Louis' scream.
That's I could have used Louis' scream.
Great job. Now, what was the inspiration to that song? You know, Pat, did you write that?
Everybody,
one?
and that's this of all songs is probably the most disappointing song to most people when I tell them.
Then make something up.
Because I was with a small record company in LA at the time, and they had signed me on as a staff songwriter, which I was thrilled, and they would pay you like a weekly salary. But I didn't really know what that meant, exactly. I just knew that I felt pretty cool about it. And one week, the one guy, Chuck, said, "We need 3 songs this week," and I'm like, "From what? How do you mean?" He says, "Well, you need to write 3 songs." I said, "Well, I don't write that way. I write when I'm inspired."
Right.
And he said, "Well,
get inspired.
We're inspired to pay you once a week. Get inspired." That's just what he said. And I said, "Oh, okay." So I went home and I only wrote 2 songs. I wrote one that was called Kathy, and then I wrote Blue Mist. And I told him, I said, "I only got 2 songs." And when he heard Blue Mist, he said, "Okay, 2 is okay." But it was just, I drew from a lot of life experiences, but there was no real person. A lot of my songs has a real person there,
right? Exactly.
But that one really didn't. And ironically, shows that you can even write a good song if you're pressured.
There's a lot of individuals out there, watching this, and there's some young musicians as well as seasoned musicians. What this show is about here, what I'm trying to do is find, because there's a lot of great talent here in St.
Yes,
Louis,
there is.
and just not in St. Louis, everywhere, and with the internet.
But you know what? Especially in St. Louis,
there is.
There really is. There's some great young talent that I know, guys that I even know, that are really
right.
good musicians.
And that's what we're trying to do here is find that platform for them to
Good
get
for
out
you.
here and get them expression. Because again, back in the day, when I was playing as well, if you didn't have a DJ in your back pocket, $500,000, $1 million, you're really not going anywhere.
Yep.
And if you do get something out, okay, how about Sunday night at 2:00 in the morning? Will that work for you?
Right.
They may play it. They may play it then.
steady rotation on Sunday too.
Right, exactly.
And once we've rotated it once, we're done.
We're done. You're out. And again, there's such great musicians out there. And with the caliber of you two, again, I really appreciate you taking the time to come down to the studio here today.
Young musicians, keep in
You know
mind.
what? I was glad to do this show, but since you explained the meaning behind it, I'm really, really glad we're doing this show.
Thank you, Danny. Seriously, because that's my mission. To what a treat it would be to find some young musicians. Every one of them, I wish.
Right.
But to have that couple in there that you can take from like say an embryonic position and then watch them grow. Give them that avenue and then see them blossom and take off. Wow, what a treat
that's
that
when
would
they're
be.
good. It's like I was 22 when I wrote Blue Mist.
Right.
And you look at Led Zeppelin, all the stuff that they wrote, or even the Beatles. These guys in their early to late 20s.
Right.
When they were writing all this
Well,
incredible stuff.
and the thing of it is, I was talking to a friend of mine, Dave Cowles.
Okay.
He's a booking agent, phenomenal music, and he's just a good human being. But he books a lot of bands, and he'll post these questions. And I was reading this thing about all the frustration all these musicians have because they got to play this. Everybody's got to play the same stuff in order to work. And I told him, I said, you know what? Thank God that Mama's Pride was that we came up when we came up,
Right.
because we had independent radio stations, which other than KDHX, that's it.
That's it. Right.
We had radio stations. We could literally get off the plane, bring an acetate, which was a vinyl record,
Right.
but it was temporary. It wasn't good for more than 4 or 5. But we could go to Casey and go, hey, this is our new record, and a Ted Hobbick would go, hey, yeah, we're done with the Yardbirds. Hey, what we're going to do for the next half hour is we're going to play the new Mama's Pride album. Wasn't any products in stores. There wasn't any merchandising. Wasn't anything. We were local boys.
They did that when we didn't have a label, and would go to the studio. I wrote something called Sail On, and we only had it on a cassette because we couldn't afford vinyl. And I took that out there, and they played it.
Right.
You know,
And
I mean,
that's
where would that ever happen now?
I mean,
Right.
this medium, the internet, is the only, I think, because corporations own all these radio stations, and they're not going, I mean, other than
Right.
an independent
I
radio
agree.
station like KDHX.
Right.
And I'm not on staff there, so I'm not plugging them for that reason. I just respect what they do.
Right.
And because these guys don't have the opportunity. I mean, you listen to the stuff. When we played cover stuff, we did Allman Brothers, Sly and the Family Stone. We did what we wanted to do. We
Right.
did the arrangements we wanted to do, which birthed a lot of our original songs.
Right.
We get into these arrangement things, but these guys have nowhere to go. And I told them, I said, Mama's Pride probably would have gone by the wayside if we were playing in this
Today's
environment.
Today's
Right.
environment.
Because
right.
you hear these phenomenal players, and they're playing the same stuff, and they lose hope. And I understand that. It's like, I'd lose hope too. I'd bum out going, my wife told me, she goes, I hate when you go to hear these great bands. Because you come home so bummed out for them.
Right.
And some of these young bands, I mean, these are young guys in their 20s that are friends of mine. You know, I'll see them on Facebook and they'll say things that sound so cynical. I told one of them, as a good friend, I said, "You're way too young to be cynical." You know,
Right.
But
You shouldn't even
I,
be going
I
there.
do
Right.
understand though, you know, because he's had just enough experience with record companies and stuff to see what
Right.
nonsense it really are.
It is. It's pathetic. In my
Right.
opinion, it's sad. It's pathetic. It's pompous. It's arrogant, and it's time for a change. And that's what I Watch Radio here is about, and the Edge. That's what we're about. Is to, you know, I love music. I'm passionate about it, and I love talent. I love to see that young
Right.
talent. And
you know what though? I'll tell you what. I love to see older guys. To me, there needs to be a level playing field here, where it's like there is an outlet for great musicians.
Terry, it doesn't matter who
Right.
exactly.
Because
yeah, right.
I'm astounded by some of the guys. I was in a music store. Now, I think the guy's done pretty well for himself. But I was in a music store one day, and I hear this guitar player, and the guy is just like, he's playing with so much passion, I almost started crying listening to him. And it's a guy named Mike Zito. I go up to the guy that runs the store. I said, "Hey, man, who is that?" He goes, "Oh, it's this guitar player, Mike Zito." I said, "God, is he good?" I said, "He makes me want to cry." I mean, there was so much emotion.
Right.
And I went up and told him, I said, "You know, I hope this doesn't sound arrogant." I said, "I played with Mama's Pride." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I know who you are." And I told him, I said, "Brother,
Play.
you are so gifted.
Right.
You are so talented." And I would love to see there be some kind of, there was a club owner when we were coming up who had a place called the River Rat, Ellis Salem. And this guy would bring in national acts, but he would use local acts
To warm
to
them up.
open up for him to
Right.
get him the exposure. And his whole thing was, man, play your songs, play your originals.
Play your heart out.
And
right.
there aren't a lot of club owners. I mean, hats off to the guys who do let musicians do that. But this guy, I mean, we thanked him on the first record because we felt that Ellis getting us that exposure was very key because we opened up for the Outlaws. The Outlaws' road manager called their manager became our manager. I mean,
And
it was a domino.
Yeah, and that's how it used to be. I remember A&R guys actually used to go into the club and see you play. If they liked you, boom, there you go.
Right.
Let's go in the studio, see what you can do.
Well, unfortunately, A&R guys now are accountants. They don't know anything about music. They know what
sells,
if we sell a million units, we that. You know, they used to sign you to a 5-album deal. They figured your first 2 records are going to be throwaway.
Right.
That was the developmental part of it.
Right.
And then you got on to making music.
Then you got into figuring it out.
But
No, see, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to build a platform, and so far we're off to a pretty good start. And I really appreciate the caliber of you two coming in here and helping out with this. And any way that you can help out, we greatly appreciate it. You know, send them to us, and I'll have them on the show. Whatever we can do, because what Teresa and I are trying to do as well is because of the technology that we have. And she has some really good film crew, guys that know how to work cameras really well. We would like to get a facility to where we can actually do live performances with these bands, pump them out, and have everybody see them.
do you know R. Scott Bryan? No. He's involved with Jason. What's Jason's last name? Rocking Horse.
Rocking Horse and Red Pill is
Right.
the other studio.
And that's what their whole thing at this studio is about, the St. Louis sound. Scott played with Sheryl Crow. I mean, he's like a
He's up
serious
there.
player,
Right.
and just a great guy. But that's his thing. He goes, Dan, we're trying to establish the St. Louis sound. Well, what's beautiful about the St. Louis sound is you can't pigeonhole it. It's not like the Seattle grunge.
No, it's diversified. It is so rich in
When we were on the
diversification.
road, major bands, when they were looking to replace somebody in the band, they always came to St. Louis. There was a bass player here in town that was offered the job with Journey, a guy that played with Nick, who played with the Mississippi Sheik, or the Sheiks, I think they
Right.
started the two. But they came after this guy 3 different times. But he loved his band, and he was
Right.
like, "No, I'm not bailing on him."
Right.
But Journey, I mean, all the major touring acts,
Come to recruit from here.
they would come and pull out of and that's the thing. It's like, if you could ever get all the dots to connect, there could be a St. Louis sound that's got a huge range.
Oh, it is. It's very diversified. And
Or at least help, like you said, be an incubator to help develop this talent.
see, and that's, instead of it being so fractured, because right now it's fractured. You have musicians all over the place, but there's no unity. And that's what I really desperately try to do, is bring the unity of the music scene together so they could feed off each other, get to know each other, and play around each other, and that will create the synergy, to start putting St. Louis on the map where it belongs, because this is a very rich history in music, such as yourselves. And to be able to do that would be,
Well, see, and
thank you up there. You
That's
know
what I
mean?
talked to Scott about. I said, I had a restaurant out in Winghaven that has since closed, although Llewellyn's is there. So, if you're in O'Fallon, go to Llewellyn's. But the one thing that would make me want to get back into that business is to start a place that has great food, but that it's the history of St. Louis music.
Right.
And you help promote these guys, and you put one of the things Ellis Salem did that I thought was a stellar idea, brilliant idea. If you had any kind of recordings, and you were going to be playing in his place, he'd play it every night. So by the time you played there, people were familiar with some of your songs.
Right.
Well,
We got a caller coming in here. Hello, this is Bobby Mick with The Edge.
Hi, this is Bill from the Keys.
Hi, Bill. How you doing today?
Hi, this is Bill from the Keys. Just ask Pat how many people he's played with in the last 2 weeks.
Pat, how
You
many-
could have a whole day of bands playing with Jim Stevens and Scott and all the other people that he's played with in the last couple of weeks.
When you say Bill from the Keys, you're talking about Bill Burnett?
Yeah, that's who it is.
No kidding.
Oh, from like the Florida Keys.
Right. Our Facebook buddy.
Oh, right on.
Nice. Well, Bill, I'm glad you
But
tuned in.
I've heard some of the stuff that Pat's done with Jim Stevens, and Pat always sounds real good behind the sax.
Yeah, I know.
And,
You always said
if you
with the
just-
horn players.
You mean a horn player?
I wonder
instead of his
how many
vocal?
people he's played with in the last 2 weeks.
Man, I don't know. A lot. Yeah, I went to the studio with Jim. He just finishing up his new CD, and I did a song on there with him. And then I played with Scott Saturday. Yeah, it's